everybody. This is your girl, Annie Ruth, and I just want to say thank you for joining me for our second episode of Conversations with Annie Ruth. I am joined today by some dynamic sisters who I just can't wait to get ready to just dive into this conversation. But the first guest today is Dr. Karen Bankston, who is retired, but many of you all know her. Even though she's officially retired, she's not retired. But you know, she is a healthcare trailblazer. And she wanted to make sure I know you all. She is a grandmother of 9 grandbabies and 3 adult children. And she is a professor emeritus at UC. Okay, so even though she says she's retired, we already know she's not retired. All right, and our second guest today is, I love this young woman. Her energy is infectious. Her name is Jeni Jenkins, and she has an AKA too, you know, alias, which is also her business and creative studio around social justice issues called Renegade Babe. She is the curator of a beautiful exhibit at the Contemporary Art Center called Fierce, Black Mother Story. And, you know, that's just a little bit, that's just the icing of what this dynamic young woman is doing. I'm excited because one, when I created the artwork, we hadn't even really met. And once we met, I was like, yeah, I've got to have Jeni included in this conversation. So our title today is called A Black Woman, Nothing Else. And you all know that is the name of my signature poem. But as I was creating art for this beautiful artist commission that I'm doing called Truth and Reconciliation, giving the perspective of a Black woman, I said, I cannot leave out a Black woman, nothing else. So this is actually the 3rd series of artwork around that poem. The first one was created back in the early 80s. So I remember the first version being a beautiful black and white sketch with illustrations with the poem going down the side. And I was at the Black Family Reunion in 1990 selling that to everybody. And then the second version of that, Black Woman, Nothing Else, came with a beautiful black and white photograph that was done of me. The photographer is the late Jenkins-Moore, but if you knew about Cladis, he was doing black and whites and developing them in his studio. And so I did the poem and that picture of me. And I think that's how the community got to know me, because they either saw my posters was on folks' walls or my posters with the photographs was on people's walls. But our topic today, A Black Woman, Nothing Else, we're going to use the poem and the artwork to kind of spearhead our conversation. But just to tell you a little bit about this piece, and then I'll dive in and let you all, you know, jump in where you want to. But when I was creating this piece, if you notice the image on there kind of looks like me, don't it?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Definitely.
Yes,
I really thought so. I says, boy, she really captured her own image.
There's something very unique about my image. There's part of the poem that's on the canvas. And then there's actually, it's almost like it looks like an African mask on one side.
Yes.
There's elements of a lighter skin, like part of me, there's almost like a fair skin line down the middle. So we're going to dive right in. I'm not going to talk about the detail of that. I would love to hear, you know, whoever wants to dive in first, what you all saw in that artwork when I sent it to you. What stood out?
Well, I can start, Karen, if you'd like, because that's okay.
Sure.
First of all, Annie, thank you so much for this opportunity. I am delighted that I get to spend this time with you, looking at your work and talking about it. So I'm so excited. So the first thing that I see, I was thinking that this woman, the kind of African mask you're saying was like, I thought that was like your elder vision, or like your ancestors speaking to you. And then I thought, because of the poem, that this white strip was maybe a reflection of your mom getting married, or is your dad getting married? It was your dad getting married, right, to a white woman.
Yeah.
And then you in this beautiful I love this like African. Did you do like decoupage on there?
Yeah, it's a combination of many different fabrics. I just went crazy. I kind of ordered up like about maybe 40 different Afrocentric prints. And I thought it would be really nice to kind of make her a, we call that, something that the ushers and stuff wear, a drape, or like when you graduate. What's that called when you graduate and you got a cape? Yeah, so she's got like a necklace type drape. I wanted it to really say, I am a proud Black woman. So hopefully those colors.
She does say that.
Yeah.
And then what is the text on? So you have all this like this collage text behind. Is that a specific text? Is that the poem over and over again?
That actually is, those are actually Bible pages from the Holy Scriptures. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, when I looked at it, I first did see that. I said, boy, she captured her own self. And I know that for artists, how challenging that can be, you know, to do that. But what I saw next was this transition to this fairness in terms of the skin color and the pain. And perhaps I sensed it as pain because of my own experience. You know, in my book, my memoirs, you know, I write a section where I talk about trying to scrub the Black off of my skin, trying to be white, and I write that in my book. And so when I saw that, that was what came to me right away. I'm like, oh my gosh, she must have had that similar kind of experience. This whole notion of just being Black's just not right. It's just not right. I'm too dark. I've got to get white. And then when it moves into the more tan, I said, okay, all is well with my soul.
Mm-hmm.
All is well with my soul. I've now come to an understanding and a realization that I'm okay. So I saw it, and I just thought of this transition. You know, it was like you just transcending from the state of something's wrong with me to I've got to be somebody else to, yeah, I'm Black woman, nothing else, and it's okay.
Well, you know what? When I wrote that poem, it definitely, when I say it was autobiographical, it was, because even though I wrote the poem as a teenager, it was pain that I was grasping from way back in elementary school. And the real, and a lot of it is true fact, that my father, he used to listen to James Brown. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, right? And he was,
yeah, that song saved my life. August of 1967, saved my life.
So as he was listening, he would listen to that around the house. There came, you know, different issues that arose in the family, you know, like domestic violence and some other things. And so it finally got to the point to where my father left the family, but he didn't leave the family in good terms. He left the family. We were hungry. Bills needed to be paid. Gas and electric was getting cut off. And I had vivid memories of going with my mother, me and my sister. We lived in College Hill area of Cincinnati. And there was, in the Over the Rhine area, there was Findlay Market. And we would always go down there. Well, during, you know, the early 70s, Findlay Market had lots of bars in it. So we had to go, which they call beer gardens. So we had to go to the beer garden to find Dad. And there he was sitting up in the beer garden with a white woman as we were there hungry, lights off and all that stuff. So, and then what really broke my self-esteem was the father who left us hungry. Then there was a little white girl who called him Popsy, the equivalent of daddy. So she was calling him daddy and he was taking care of her. And so I said to myself, Black is not anything to be proud of. It's not beautiful. It's not even worthy of a father's love. And I had to wrestle with learning to love myself through all of that. So.
Yeah, I can definitely identify with all that. So when I saw this piece, I shared a little bit of this with Annie and Karen, but I haven't said all of it. Is that, you know, when I my family, I'm biracial, so my mom is white, was raised with my white family, but my dad is Black. But I was never told that I was Black. So they thought that they could hide it from me. Um, my whole life. So they just always said that I was like Native American on my mom's side, and that's why I had darker skin. And my great grandpa had really curly hair. And so, like, for years, I didn't understand. When I read your poem, immediately I was brought back to kindergarten, like, immediately. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my life. Because I grew up in an all white area, but I was the only, if I was maybe one of two or three people of color, and the rest were Hispanic. And so when I started school, kids are the ones that tell you that you're different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so my family wanted to hide it and pretend like it, because my mom has blonde hair and blue eyes, freckles, pale skin, burns really easily. So I did not look like my mother at all. And so I didn't understand, but then she would just tell me I'm beautiful or whatever. And then these kids at school, they tell me that I'm adopted from an early
Yeah.
age. And I just like, I don't understand what does that even mean? Well, I'm 5 years old.
Right.
And so like from then on, like I cannot remember a day in my life where I haven't thought about race. And then for the longest time, what this reminded me of is like, I felt like I dreamed to have like blonde hair and blue eyes like my mom and my sister. And like, I wanted my hair straight. I wanted lighter skin. I wanted those freckles that they all had. I have lighter eyes, but my mom's eyes are bright blue. So like I felt like I was always running away from the Blackness, running towards whiteness. And then as I got older and started like loving myself and accepting myself for who I was, I feel like now I'm running away from white. Like I'm like, I don't know if I want to be associated with this side of my family who can't even like acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, or they can't acknowledge that there's a problem, that there's racial inequality in this country. And so like that, I feel like for me, like this like transition is similar for me, because it was like, I don't know, I've learned to embrace myself, my natural hair, just like not try to straighten it, not try to kill myself trying to look not like who I am, and just try to be in this who I am, I don't know.
Yeah. The transition, and how we as Black women have to go through it has crossed all the generations, because I'm older than both of you. And my earliest remembrances of dealing with my skin color was in the 1950s, when my little sister was born, because she's fair skinned, and I'm dark. And people would say, "Oh, she's so pretty. She's just like a little peach." And I would try to say, what are they talking about? Am I pretty? No one was saying that I was pretty, and my mother was dark like me, and she never married. So we all have different dads. And she, before she died, when we became friends, I always say that, your mother becomes your friend when you become an adult. And we talked about why she never married, and all of her demons that she dealt with. But one of the things that stuck with me was this whole notion that Black men often didn't want to marry dark-skinned women, because they were fearful that if they had daughters, their daughters would look like those dark-skinned moms. So they either went for lighter skin, fair skinned women, or white women, if they could. And my mother suffered from that and did not know how to help her daughter. So when I got to kindergarten, same kind of age, and starting to have to interact with white kids, because I started going to integrated schools right after Brown versus Board of Education. And they said I was smart. Yeah. I was smart. So smart Black kids got to be in the classroom with white kids. There was a small group of us. And they would say, what's wrong with you? You know, and toot their little nose up. And that I remember just going home and getting stuff called Ajax. It's like a scrubbing powder, you know, cleaning.
Yeah,
That you clean the bathtub and stuff with, yeah. And putting it all over and just scrubbing, trying to make my skin white till I was almost bleeding. And my mother finding me in the bathtub, trying to get this dark skin off, and then explaining to me and talking to me about the beauty of being Black, even though she was dealing with it herself. She was dealing with it herself. And all through at the elementary school and being bullied about being Black, about being, well, we were colored back then. We weren't saying we were Black, we were colored people, but about being that it was always in the back of my head. So when you talked about, you don't remember a day when when you weren't thinking about race, I get that. Yeah. I get that. And, as we've all been going through these last, 4 or 5 years, hearing all of the rhetoric around race and equity and seeing people being killed, it's just, for me, and I've said to people, I've got PTSD because so much of what we're dealing with, I've been dealing with my whole life, and I'm tired. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm tired, and it has impacted every phase of my life, So I get it. Yeah. Exactly. And that's when I saw that transition in the painting. That's what I saw. I'm like, oh my God, it's just going through each of those phases and trying to learn how it is I'm going to survive to the next day.
Right.
I will say this very proudly, that my salvation came wrapped up in a dark brown sister who reaffirmed that you're beautiful, you're smart. Almost like, y'all remember the movie where what's her name's character was telling the little girl, you was smart, you was special, you was beautiful. I almost really had that. Every day she literally would tell me how beautiful I was. And believe it or not, I was not smiling during those days. The TV you see now, people often say, oh, your trademark is your beautiful smile. I did not smile during that time. I was either looking mad because I was trying to fend people off. So my defense mechanism was this nice, wasn't nice. It was a serious, mean look, like you better not mess with me because I'm going to beat you down, because that's how I had to kind of learn how to defend myself. But I love the fact that that woman came into my life and began to reaffirm. Even though I heard from my mom, it wasn't enough. And what I heard from my dad was conflicting, because he was saying Black and proud, his actions were saying something different. So I really think it took this outside younger woman reaffirming what my mother was trying to keep pouring into me, that I am beautiful, I am special, I am great.
Yes. Annie, so how did you join the service? You did the military. I mean, how did you, and again, this shows again just that little bit of difference in age. There's no way in heck I would have ever done the service with Vietnam and all. I mean, I was just adamantly opposed because I was starting college around that time. Mm-hmm. But how did you deal with the military during that period of time, with the things that were going through your mind?
Well, you know what? During that, by the time I graduated from high school, because it was during my junior high years that I met this older Black woman. She was only maybe 10 years older than I am. So by the time I made it from junior high school into high school and to joining the military, I began to be exposed to more positive white people. And one of the most positive white folks that I was exposed to was actually racially ignorant. The things that came out of his mouth was like, hey, like if you saw a black young man with braids, he'd be like, what's those twigs in your head? But what I noticed was that even though he was racially ignorant, that his ignorance wasn't prejudice. You know what I mean? I was able to see that here's someone who taught me to the best of his ability in commercial art, and I excelled, and I began to compete throughout the state and around the country. And so what I realized was that, yes, there's ignorance there, meaning he didn't know. So some people are not always speaking from that place of prejudice or bigotry. Sometimes they're speaking from the place of ignorance. They don't
Absolutely
know. They don't know who's going to build that bridge. So I never saw the negatives. By that time, my self-esteem had been built up so much so that I joined the military, really the reserves, as a way of furthering my art career, because I went in under a guaranteed contract to be a graphic designer in the military, and it was what helped me pay for college.
I see. I think about during that period of time, and I, because of the colorism issues within our own race, it continued to perpetuate how I felt about myself all through high school and all through college. It was just impossible in college because I went to a predominantly white university. There were very few Black people in my classes. The teachers didn't talk to you. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But what began to happen, my oldest son, I graduated from high school, I become a nurse, I get a nice job, buy a house, I get married and divorced a couple of times. And my oldest son begins to date and starts dating white girls. I absolutely lose it. Okay, I'm losing it. I'm like, what, and to the extent that when it was time for his senior year, time for him to go to the prom, and I said, I'm not paying for no white girl to go to the prom. I am not paying for a white girl to go to the prom. I mean, like, who's taking the Black girls to the prom? He went to a private school, and back then, white boys didn't go and get a Black girl and like they do now. Now some of them will do that, but back then they weren't doing that. I'm like, I'm not. And he said to me, Mom, I thought you said that God wants us to love everybody, and that we should embrace everybody. And I'm like, I had my kids, we went to church, and I'm like, yes, that is true. I absolutely believe that. But in my heart, I had not gone that far. I had not worked through what that might look like, and certainly what that was going to feel like. I felt like he had betrayed me so how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? Needless to say, years go by, he marries a white woman. They've been, my son and daughter-in-law have been married over 20 years. They love each other. All my grandchildren, most of my grandchildren are biracial because my other sons did the same thing. And I had to learn a whole new way of acceptance in order to just love my own family.
Yeah.
So I had to get somewhere. I had to go, I literally got counseling to work on caring. Because I realized at Mikey's wedding, when I almost beat up his mama-in-law, that I had not worked through some very significant personal issues about myself.
I don't know if either of you ever read Bell Hooks, but I just finished a book called Ain't I a Woman? Have you read that book?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Just reading about the ways in which what happened as a result of after slavery, the ways in which Black men gained the right to vote and were trying to compete with white men in this world, that they would go after white women because they wanted that status symbol. And the ways in which that made Black women feel less than. And how that reverberated throughout communities and created another sense of it's like an unfair sense of hate, because we're living in this country where white supremacy has been the rule for so long, and we have people who deserve to be loved and to be treated right and to have their lives matter, constantly fighting for it. And then you have people within your own demographic group who are trying to and I have it with my own it's inside me. I think about did my ancestors own my ancestors?
Yes.
That whole there's this tension that is ongoing and this angsty, and similar experience to me in high school. I went to prom with a white guy, and he was in love with me. He wanted to marry me. He bought me a ring. I was like, why are you buying me a ring? We're too young. But I actually was a mom already, but I was a teen mom, but I had my son, and then I dated this guy. He would ask me to prom, and his parents made him break up with me because they didn't not because I had a baby, but because that I was Black.
Yes.
And he tried to hide it from them. He cried. Oh my gosh, he cried. He would because he used to have a pager. So he would page me and be like, call me, my parents aren't home, kind of thing. And I'd call him. I'm like, I can't date you. Your parents won't let me date you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Chris. This is never going to happen.
Yes.
Right.
I cannot hide behind. If they don't love me for who I am, why would you want to be with me?
Yes.
It was a very hard situation, but he was just devastated. They were just like, you can't date this. I mean, you can't date this woman. And then I had another guy tell me, oh, I have so many little tiny microaggressions from my life. But one guy I remember telling me, so I had a crush on him. This is late junior high. I said, I told my friend I had a crush, and she came back. She's like, well, he said that you're pretty cute for a Black girl.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay.
So now I'm oh, okay, but that I'm not cute enough to date or whatever. So I always had these little bits of resentment from people and the way that they treated me. And then when guys did like me, it was oh, are you exotifying me? Are you sexualizing me because you want to tame the beast kind of thing?
Yes.
There's something in the artwork, and I don't know if you all saw it, because the great thing about artwork is that it speaks to us in different ways at different times. So after I met Jeni and we began to talk about all the great activism that she's doing in the community, and then I actually looked at, even in my children's books, how I reflect this beautiful rainbow of children who in essence may look like the whole world, but they all are really a rainbow of Blackness. And so that white stripe or strip down the face of my self-portrait in A Black Woman, Nothing Else, shows the multiplicity of Blackness. Because if I can equate, if Jeni was experiencing the same thing in Idaho, right, Jeni?
Yes, Idaho, yeah.
So in Idaho, she became the darkest woman in the room. But so is there one transitional point or whatever that happened in you guys' life that said, okay, this is who I am, love me as I am, and I love me as I am? What was there something that helped that transition for you all to get to that point? I'm a Black woman, I'm here, I ain't going away, I'm not sugarcoating or downplaying who I am me. So was there something that happened in you guys' life that got you to that point?
I had a couple of things that I had to, and I say I had to go through. I was a teen mom also, Jeni. So I understand that perspective as well. And that, boy, you're talking about, I was always looking for love. I say looking for love in all the wrong places.
I say that too.
Do you? Yeah, looking for love in all the wrong places. And
yes.
and that captures that captures the journey to finding Karen, which is, the name of my book, Journey to the Other Side of Through. And that is, I spent the first 4 decades of my life always questioning why God brought me here on this earth. It's like, I've had suicide attempts, and, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and intimate partner violence, and, all kinds of things. And, I've shared my story with many people, and they always say, but you had such a great career. And I always say, that's true. And it's not because of anything that I did, but because what I know now, but it's because there were people who saw things in me that I did not see in myself. And it wasn't until I had this moment with my father, because I was going into my 50s with daddy issues. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I had that moment where I was able to sit down with him down there in Atlanta, mm-hmm. and go through every pain and everything that I felt I needed to go through as a young girl, a young woman, a wife and mother that needed her dad, that I finally felt like all of the blessings that God had given me, I was worthy to accept. It wasn't until that happened. And then when I released all that anger, I realized I had placed blame on him for everything that had happened in my life. And I really didn't know it until we had that, I went and talked to him, and I didn't really talk. I cussed him out. It was really bad. But anyway, I did not realize that it wasn't, because I've had therapeutic counseling, and I've been on antidepressants. I've been in a psych facility. All of those kinds of things that I've done. It wasn't until I was able to release the pain and anguish that I had been holding in, and not saying I didn't understand, and so forth. Even though I've been a believer of God and Jesus Christ is my Savior for decades, it wasn't until I did that I will say to you that I was able to stand up and say I'm a Black woman and nothing else. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, when I got into my 50s, I was rocking them 50s, okay? Because I was like, it's all about me. There's nothing you can say to me about me, all right? Because I know that God made me, and as they say, he don't make no junk. I get that now. But it took a long time for me. And so I think it's why now, when I have an opportunity to speak life into young Black women, I will do whatever I can to let them know that they are wonderfully made and that they have purpose. We just have to find that purpose and get it out of them to be able to do those things that God has destined them to do.
One of the things that I discovered about me, and I'm 41 now, so I have been through a lot of domestic violence, and 3 years, and survived that. And I think one of the things that helped me was like that I had kids young. Both my kids are 25, they're 25 and 21, and they kind of pushed me to keep going. And like I strove to, I got my bachelor's degree, and I was the first person in my family to get a degree, and got my master's degree, and now I'm getting my second master's degree. And I've had a good work life. And I think trying to like be there for them has made me who I am, is part of the thing. But the other thing that I was going to say is going back to like, how did I transition to like embracing who I am as a Black woman, acceptance? I found that because I found a family that was I've had two creative families that I found and I made my own. So in early college, I found a group of people who were like me, who were misfits in terms of being like the only people of color. So we all happened to be single parents, so we all kind of got together. So there was like a group of us. There was someone from Cuba, someone from Puerto Rico, someone who's Black, but her mom married an African, and then we have and like my best friend's Filipino. She's biracial, Filipino and white. So like we all came together and like embraced our differences, and it was the first time in my life that I was like, oh, it's okay to be this, because I wasn't told that I had to be white anymore. Like I wasn't told that I had to fit into this mold of like what it means to be a white person and to function in this way. And so like learning how to embrace that. And then when I moved to Cincinnati, I found a new family, same thing, so that has been my saving grace, like finding this made family. I mean, I love my family, but I have found this like other family that like accepts me for who I am and understands some of the things that I've gone through and pushes me up, highlights me and praises me and makes me feel worthy, says like those things that people said about you, those aren't nothing. And then my husband is also another one. He's like always telling me like, you are so hard on yourself. You're amazing. And I don't know why you don't see that.
I'm one who believes that our steps are ordered. And so I think it was all part of the plan. I think everything was predetermined and predestined. And so I believe it was part of the plan so that the three of us can sit here and have this talk. So that now that Annie can take it and let somebody else hear it, because somebody somewhere needs to hear what it is that we all have been through.
You know what? You said it so right. And I think that's the perfect time to kind of embrace this conversation that we've had and encourage people to love on themselves, appreciate themselves. And so I think it'll all be better. My whole purpose of doing all of this artwork is to really give the world a clear picture of Black women, the voices of Black women through art. And I thought by talking to you sisters, they could see a really good picture that Black is not about light or dark, fair or darker. It's a rainbow. It's a multiplicity of experience, a multiplicity of shades and everything. And so keep up the great work, my sister Jeni. I love what you're doing through art activism. And, Karen, you are a mother to so many of us. I'm so glad you didn't take the retiring posture of, I'm going to go somewhere and just, sit. So I do honor all that you have poured into so many, young, old, and so many nationalities too. But definitely, as we educate folks to see Black women, see us, ask us, let's dialogue, don't assume. And any encouraging words y'all want to, some encouraging words y'all want to share with the audience?
Encouraging words. Just, love yourself, and then praise and raise up other people. And as you lift yourself up, lift other people. That's what I'm all about, empowering other people as well, especially women of color.
I love that. And Karen, what's your encouragement for us?
I want to echo what she said. I think that, and I saw this on Facebook once, and it said, "Queens lift other queens." And I think that we have to see ourselves in that royal position of being princesses and queens, and that we have to be able to acknowledge that for ourselves, and then lift someone else up who can't see it in themselves yet. Because as I said, had it not been for people who saw something in me that I did not see in myself, who knows where I would have landed. So I thank God for those individuals who said, you can do this.
Yeah.
You can do this. And we need to embrace ourselves and embrace others as we move
Yes.
forward to make the change. We want to be the change that we want to see.
Absolutely.
Here comes the kiss. I'm gonna blow it to Karen first. Here comes the kiss, Karen. Thanks for being with me.
Oh, that was good. Very nice.
All right, and Jeni, here comes the kiss. You ready for it?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Here we go.
No. Mwah. Did you catch mine?
I did.
Okay. Oh, you got it like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.